Meeting of the Ocean Highway Port Authority to order. At this time, will you please stand for communication led by Vice Chair Nelson, followed by the pledge.
As part of Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can come before you and conduct business in this county, for the citizens and for the Port Authority and as a whole. We ask now your blessings upon this meeting. We ask that you give us wisdom and discernment. We thank you for the blessings that you have brought to the Lord. We ask now that you be with our first responders, and we thank you so much that the officer that was shot this morning, his life was spared. We ask that you would be with him and his family and bring him back to health. We ask now that you would be with us, watch over us, to keep us. We ask in Jesus' name. Whatever you require from the United States. Super God,
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Secretary Treasurer Cole, Vice Chair Nelson, Chair Taylor. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. For an exciting. I don't think it's raining yet. There's some thunderstorms. Let's look at speaking further west. There's some showers, but it's glad we did. At this time, for public comments on non-agenda items, which virtue I know I had you down, or you said either tab 6 or tab 10B. Would you rather do 10B regarding? Okay, and then
Luke Berry, 432 North Berry Street, ready to be flagged. I'd like to thank Mr. Nelson for helping us with the traffic down Dade with the trash blowing off the sides of it. It was not the first time this has happened. This has been an ongoing thing with those type of truck with labels on the side of it. It covered up not only Dade Street, but down 8th Street also. And that's right before the 4th of July. It doesn't take 28 years or even 1 year to see a truck loaded with stuff, all stuff on the side of it. You know it's going to blow off as it goes down the street. I think there should be some way to mitigate that from us having to put up with on Day Street. I don't know what they do all the way down 8th Street, but somebody's got to pick it up. And it is a mess. Thank you. Thank you.
moving on to tab 7, approval of minutes. We will take this for June 11, 2025, June 5th, 2025, to motion for your individual altogether.
Sure, I had a couple changes to minutes. I forwarded those to Rosanna, but I may go through them. I think it's just where the audio may have been using AI.
AI.
It's great. There were 2 places where they were just like typewriter errors. So one is on, sorry, copy.
If you could give me the page, Commissioner Hill.
All right, let's there's an instance where the report is and I think the recorder should be there. It should report each 6 of the June 11 minutes, and it's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. Investment report should be investment in report. And then at the end of the documents, let's see. All right, I highlighted version of my email, not really. Do you see the one that I emailed you, Rosanna?
I don't, but I will check the email and correct it accordingly.
Okay, in the second 7 minutes, page 1, the last paragraph, it says Commissioner no, the second sentence says he. But I don't know if it was me talking or it was Aaron. I'm not sure.
I think that was you.
So it's just the she,
Mhm.
yes. So I didn't pay close attention when other people were talking, so if you all haven't read the minutes. You might want to just take a look, because this is our first time using AI. We had a continuing education recently, and for lawyers, and one of the analogies they made is that AI is kind of like a first year law associate rushing to school. You can assign that to write a brief for the court, but you're not going to just turn around and hand that to a judge. You're going to read it very carefully and make modifications, then submit it. That's not malpractice. So taking a first year associate's pleadings and handing it to a judge might be this. So with AI, like a human brain needs to read it and make sure that it makes sense, because it can be completely nonsensical. So
Correct, we only, invest in what not courts, it's not our term, and your clients.
So if you all wanted to go look at it, to read your attributed statements, I would suggest that, otherwise, the version that I sent to, Rosanna had 2 points highlighted that I think you take rat lawyers.
Chairman Taylor, yes. I think since this is the first time we've used data, we're probably incumbent on us to delay approving these minutes. We will have a chance to review them more in depth.
Yeah, we can push this to the next meeting, on that. We just, Rosanna, just when you do it that way, I know this takes time, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, it's just good for us to make sure some of the local grammar lawyers, things like that, check it, will the same, check.
And I do, while I'm listening to the audio recording, I go through it and I while I'm reading it, and
Yeah.
those 2 things or 3 things just
So sometimes
by the way.
share that up as the attributed statements, I'll just search for my name. But that's not always going to reach everything. Your statements somehow, right?
Good catch, thank you, for sure. All right, moving down to court attorney reports, Ms. Locke.
Yes, thank you. And some of this is later in the agenda, but I made changes to the Active Engineering Services contract, and they made all of our changes. Oh, thank you. They made all of our of my suggested changes, and so it was easy. We're using their contract format that I made changes to. This is a continuing services contract. It has it can be terminated for any reason with 30 days notice by either the engineer or the Port Authority. And this is just an as needed. We call on Acton if we need engineering services or environmental services, but we don't have to. And we also added in there, because these are not intended to be exclusive contracts, that this is a non-exclusive contract. At any point, we want to hire an engineer for ourselves for a specific project or another that's on a continuing basis, we can do that. And yeah, I messed with the limitation of liability. It was going to be like a lot of vendors or contractors, they want to limit the liability to what we actually pay them. Well, if it's a small thing that turns it to be a big deal, then I didn't think that was fair, because they have $1 million of insurance. So that's their limit of liability, would be the $1 million. Or if we have a big project, their liability could exceed $1 million if the claim exceeds $1 million. So that was good change, and we were glad they accepted it. So I would recommend approval later in the agenda. So I worked on that. With regard to fender replacement, there are 2 items that will come before this board. One is the letter agreement with the port operator that I made some changes to, and I have not heard back. I've heard back from Amy Polson, but not with the changes ready for this board to approve. It was no big deal. They should not be a big deal for them to approve those. So hopefully we'll get that on the next agenda. And that letter agreement says how the grant funds are distributed and how the operator is reimbursed for their payments to the contractor. The next issue is actually a contractor. So I received the contract, and honestly, Amy Colson and I are still working through. I haven't reviewed it for its content, but with regard to this being a grant funded project, there has to be a competitive solicitation. And I noted that I needed, and we need to have on file as the grantee, the proof and the process of how it was competitively bid, what the invitation to bid said, who were the bidders, and if there was an evaluation criteria and selection process, how that went. And today, Ms. Polson said that that is what they do. Of course, they do competitive bidding, but I then reiterated that we actually have to have the documents in our files in case we're audited in the future. So that's something we're still working on. So we are not at the point of hiring a contractor. I did ask about engineering, and it's a fender replacement. So it doesn't, not that I could necessarily engineer that, but it seems pretty easy. But I'm not sure if we can do it without any type of engineering at all. It might have to be a design build type of situation where Trelleborg, the manufacturer, provide some specifications. So I'll talk through that with Ted and with Amy, and we'll hopefully get there as quickly as possible. Are there any questions about that process?
I would just say it's a replacement, so as long as it's a one-to-one replacement, I don't know why we need any sort of engineering.
And I'm not saying that we absolutely do, but the contract itself, all I'm doing is asking questions.
Right.
That's all. So, and because that's what we've done in the last few days, actually. I just heard back from Amy saying she didn't think we needed engineering.
Yeah, because we checked, and even on the front end, went into this, Savage didn't, said, no, we don't need to engineer, that's the thing kind of points. But I appreciate y'all, thanks for that, because as we've heard before, we don't want to be on the delinquent list, so we need to wrap up the contract, so then I can do the preliminary work, then we'll get into this, we can wrap up the delinquent list, and then we'll live happily ever after.
So
Because it's one thing we're having this definitely about next.
I am hoping so. If the contract name this, later, if you don't mind, when we get to that, I don't know if we still have, do you have the construction contract uploaded with the?
I can,
Because the name of the contractor, they're not licensed to do business in Florida, so that we're not gonna be able to enter into a contract with them until all they have to do is register. If that is the contractor that you all chose through a competitive solicitation, we can move it forward. And I can get documents and proof of the solicitation, as this moves.
I'll send them this.
But I always,
For the, that was obviously before me, I'll ask for the period documents.
so the name that is inserted in the contract is the industrial company. And when I look them up on Florida Corporation's website, they don't exist. So they have to file in Florida. It's very easy to do. And we'll need that by the time we sign the contract. So that is the fender replacement. I'm still working with Amy Polson on our revenue distribution later in the agenda that comes up, based upon her letter in May, and I'm supposed to respond. I called her, we had a good chat, and she's talking to some other people. Because I was pushing back on a little bit on some of the interpretations, their interpretations of the operating agreement. So I should hear from her and have a better update at the next meeting. The property appraiser litigation, there was a hearing on June 26th, and there was no decision at the judge moved this all to October 27th. and I could tell you all the reasons why, but it's kind of boring, frankly. Do you have anything to add to that I'm missing? It's
No, because the hearing occurred at 10, and everyone was given the right.
same.
I got better things.
Yes, me too. Same thing with me. Uh, Now, I was in terms of getting my substitution of counsel and getting notice of all of that hearing. I came in after with the substitution of counsel. So now I should have all of the documents and be right. We were just dependent on Patrick and his firm before. So we don't know exactly what was said, but Commissioner Hill and I did have a Teams meeting with Derek Bruce, who's the lead litigator on this, and he was very good about giving us updates. So there were no decisions that were made on June 26th. Before October 27th, we do expect to have to attend a mediation. And so
At what point should we have a meeting?
like a shade meeting. I don't think that we're at that point yet. Commissioner Hill, do you feel any different based on our call with Mr. Bruce?
I think that is, did you want to share Mr. Acker's thoughts?
No. But I can.
So he's prepared, Darren has prepared a draft response. To the original. And each year is kind of a separate case because of the statutory requirements of the property appraiser, certified role. And so the legislature, this constitutional that separates duties of the property appraiser tax collector. So the tax collector is going to continue to collect, so they have liens, they have tax certificates, and they have to follow that process. And so for each year, depending on how that year's taxes was managed, it's a different case. And so I think the argument of, I don't want to state their argument for them, the other side, but I think that what they're saying is that for at least one of the years that they have a more valid claim than the others. And so those are the years that I was kind of focused on as to like, what are we going to do with those intervening years where tax certificates were sold? And what's the proper procedure for redeeming those certificates or canceling those certificates? Like what, how do you make that whole at this point? So he's prepared a draft response. I don't think it's for public consumption.
Right.
So I think you would have to share that in a shade meeting in order to get feedback from the whole board, unless you, I mean, I think we do it to do it that way.
Well, that's what I was at, because I think there's, I was on a meeting with Patrick and the council, similar to what you and Tammy did. So there's information that you may have, there's information I have on there, just, for us to really.
For us to-
Sure. But we are getting to a point where there's going to be mediation part to hearing. I think at some point,
Yes.
we need to sit down, have a shade to discuss. Everything.
That I will speak with Derek Bruce about that. And yeah, and so it probably won't be before, on the 23rd of July this month, but we'll try to get it for August. And the only other thing is I'm just working through some customs house documents and history. And that's it.
I'm forwarding you, vendor of the documents.
Perfect.
That's it. Alright, no, to board county reports. Yeah.
You have those, the treasurer's report in the package. So, yeah, page 2 about county. That's the report. So we continue, so obviously we haven't changed the budget. Received no input from anyone about making a change to the budget yet. We are continuing, so we reached out to the insurance and the Florida Courts Council, all those prices for next year or two for the fees or whatever are to be set still. So we, like I said, right now we have nothing to change, right? So the best version of the budget right now is the one you already have in your hands. So, unless you're gonna have comments or questions, we'll continue to work on that. And at some point we'll make, and I continue to work on, obviously carry forward will be one of the biggest issues, right? How much money do we carry forward? And how will that impact us the budget next year? Right now, the budget we have has a deficit on it, which means that we have to carry some fund this year. How much of that number is one of the questions. Uh, did you work on that? I did help you out with this issue.
I know, Rosanna's been reaching out and receiving feedback from the chamber and going, or just the fees, the membership fees, and what those look like, and there's an increase there. So maybe at our next meeting, we can dive a little deeper into the budget with those updated numbers, and then just looking at, you know, where we can what we can do. What we can do. Yeah. Any questions for here? That's it. Work operating reports. That's it. Yeah, so, pretty good month. Never really had any questions, if there's points or any questions. Who's the, cruising goal? Crimson Bars in Florida, currently. So they, went to, they're getting a sweet offer to move there. When did that happen? We loaded our last bar 2 weeks ago.
Sad.
It is sad. We can talk about it. I mean, like, there's pros and cons of that bar service. The pros were, it gave us good dockage revenue. It was pretty steady, you know, cargo. The cons were extremely challenging to load a stove. So kind of a high risk operation. And then the amount of days it's set alongside, it's kind of like when you get a lot of dockage and fees, but then on the other side of it, it holds up a berth. So you have situations where you have drinks of bargain for 8 days, and we have vessels sitting on an anchor waiting on a berth. And then we'll have like, summer's out, and then we've got a situation where there's 3 ships waiting on a berth. And one of them is out 30. So again, I never like to lose cargo, never like to lose customers. We did not push them away. We made a valiant effort to try to keep them. But the situation that they were presenting in Canaveral, I think it's pretty tragic. Well, that was a big win for us, it really came. It's like that one year. But yeah, so I know you're excited about it too. With the loss of that business, what do we have? Do we have anything replacing it? So we've got, we're running in on pretty new, I'm under NDA, but the container line. They're starting up to Central America, and they're going to start with a call in the Northeast first. And the plan is to add us. Now, I never want to, you know, advertise anything as a done deal, but that's really like number one in my cost areas right now. We're also talking to a number of our customers about increasing lumber volumes as well. But obviously, inside storage is always a constraint. Yeah. Good questions. Oh, one more question. We have a really good prospect right now. We just extended an offer for a bag cargo. Don has Texas fuel salt.
So, and we'll come off pretty full and we're still on the board. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. And I don't want to jinx myself here.
So the difference between loading, like the cargo was bulk, what was the material commodity? Was over?
Oh, on the bar service, it was mainly lumber and then some miscellaneous steel. We did everything from like small steel coils to like 7 foot sheet piling and then some KLB rolls as well. But again, it's a situation where that barge, it's not like a drop stone like normal ships. It's you have to drop up the ramp and stack everything in. It's like playing Tetris in reverse. Yeah. And the whole floor is covered in what's called D-rings that stick up about 1.5 inches off the floor. So now you have a forklift lifting bundles and driving across the floor like this. And it was the guys did a good job. You have to go really slow or you'll damage cargo or hurt something.
So. So, the ideal situation for container, carbon.
That's correct. And really, like having a good, reliable mobile harbor trainer can be a little bit more. We can hit it. So if we've got a ship working down the dock, a lot of team members on it. We can then put a mobile harbor crane on it with a smaller team, still keep productivity up. That's sort of not thinking there, but really it's to especially for Summers Isle, which is we've extended a contract with them, and hopefully this new container service we have to have a lot of things because if we have breakdowns last a long time, that.
So is there a limit, like an outer bound of the size of ship for mobile harbor carrier, like what you all are looking at?
It depends on the model. So the one we have now is under 400. That has a pretty good reach from most ships that we call Fernandina. The one I've got in my eye is on either 420, so a little bit bigger than the small mobile harbor crane we have now. And I think it would work just fine for a hand size vessel, which is 1/5 the sea maximum.
Um, Facilities reports.
Chair,
Yes.
before you move on, there's a funding request that the board needs to approve.
Okay.
It was received last minute, so it was not in the packet.
So it was a repair to the actually to the mobile harbor barrier. So cable replacement. So all the documentation's here. So $42,377 minus the 15,000, of course, and then that leaves a balance of the 27 and some change.
So it's with take money out of the spot.
That's correct.
Since you request to take 27,337.89 out of the maintenance fund to pay for the maintenance. And obviously it includes their $15,000. They're responsible for $15,000. OHPA is responsible for anything above $15,000. So that's 27,000. Money is already spent, so what it pays. The question on that it's going to be cool. 73,765.42.
Yeah, that's in the picture of the future plans we had for the maintenance fund.
We have no plans for that money at this time. No grant or anything, some co-funding or anything like that. It's available for maintenance of the port. And this is within your responsibility, the OHPA responsibility. So,
So we have a motion. Make a motion that we approve the maintenance fund request for the repair of the, correct.
One second. Motion from Commissioner Moore, second from Commissioner Cole.
Yeah, I have
Discussion.
a question. So why is it that you're asking for half of it? Is it, are we supposed to? Portray for 2 years and then
It's not passed,
total bond was 40,000 and our request is 27.
minus $50,000.
So,
40,000 minus $50,000. So all maintenance for $50,000 is responsibility of the operator. Anything above that is responsibility of the PA. So it's minus $15,000, so it's not even split in half. It's minus the operating responsibility.
and I'm just not used to seeing like hotel expenses. Looks like there's like travel.
That's what claim that it comes, so it's a specialized repairs and it's not something that just really can't do.
And when are these, repairs?
They are complete.
They are complete.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting, 'cause, like, it's this whole process of reimbursement for maintenance. This is the first that I know about this particular request. It's already occurred, and so we have like a process where we're getting grants, we're approving projects, we're putting things out to bids, and it's competitive. And I know we have to reach a certain threshold before we do that. But then this is an item where we're doing it like after it's occurred. Maybe it was an emergency, like how did it, so the cable snap and you had to call someone in?
Travis, you want to read
Repairs, again, well, that, there's a, what I know is that it's, what they call the umbilical cord. It's the brain that runs from the control box in the crane down to the spreader bar. So all the functions from the crane down to the unit you handle cargo, that's what was repaired. It was something, it could not function without that. And, further to that, when, they had functions that keep the spreader bar, the actual container spreader from working as well. So it was multiple functions, and then additional stuff for the container stuff. That it was functions to make sure that the crane does work properly. I mean, it's something that had to happen for the mobile harbor crane.
So there's no, I have to look back. I mean, obviously we don't do that in any of these, but most of the time it's done after the fact, right? The operator obviously has a right to that money in the maintenance account. They decide which projects, not all projects. Obviously, there's not enough money in the maintenance account to fund every repair on the floor. It costs them $50,000, right? Which is, particularly that's the responsibility of we obviously expect the operator to fund those where there's no funds available, right? The operator is still ultimately responsible for operating the board, operating equipment safely, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know that there's ever been for them to come with a plan beforehand versus after the fact. I mentioned both certain cases, but again, most of it's the operator who decides which project they want to use these funds for.
Yeah, the agreement says to the extent that the expenditure is reasonable and not caused by the negligence of the operator. And so I would just want to know, like, what's the typical, like, how old was the cable? Was this is a typical repair, or this was a unexpected catastrophic failure, or it just was showing wear and tear, so we need to maintain like that type of information, just to be able to say, oh, okay, yes, it's reasonable.
I can get that information for you for exact reasons why it needed to be replaced.
So it's like if you could say, yeah, we maintained it properly, this is just a saltwater environment, this is, it's 10 years old, it's time to replace it. I think that's the validation of saying like it's a reasonable and not doing, yeah.
Guys, as well, just for one second. So when I just think about some of the issues that come up that you've raised, Commissioner Nelson, I know, was this one of them, or is this, do you have comments on this?
So I think we need to clarify the cable. When we think of cable, we're thinking of lifting cable. This is not what this was. This is an electronic cable that goes through the spool down and control the spreader, and it's rotating. It's almost impossible to safely work a container vessel without that spreader rotating. So I know we're sitting here thinking steel cable, that's not a steel cable. What we're talking about here is an electronic cable, sends all of the signals down to the rotator, locking the, flaps coming down.
You said- So it's not.
So, it's all. And all strikes, direct strikes of lightning on that crane. I've seen pieces blown off of it by lightning, so sitting here listening about the cable, it was probably in due time that it was going to go and completely fail out, but, like I say, I know of two incidents where we had direct hits on boom. And when you have that kind of voltage hit that crane, I mean, even though it's grounded to the rail, it still takes that jolt. And I've been watching it, and they have had some severe problems electronically.
Yeah, so actually a bolt of lightning would be an accident. And that would be covered by the operator. If that doesn't happen, if it was struck by lightning, that should be insurance. But really, and it's just to satisfy the requirement is that it's reasonable and it's not caused by either something that should be covered by insurance or failures to maintain, which really should be like good operating for the operator. I think that's the box to check for us to say we indeed have oversight over, withdrawing money from maintenance account, just for the funds that are expended on this.
I will get that information and forward it to Susanna. Now, Commissioner, forgive me for referring back to my marine roots and terminology.
Question, good, comment.
Yeah, the only thing that, I was just kind of looking forward, even though in the past, maybe it has been a really good piece of thinking. It would help us maintain our oversight, was, know what's projected out when there is major things like this that reimbursement for the, we're aware of it ahead of time, not going to necessarily second guess you, like we think there's something contractually that allows us to, or requires us to do that, just so that we're aware of it, so that it's not, any act of foul, hey, here's this bill, we want you to pay. We've done it last time, we could ask these questions, turn the bench.
Okay, so we have a motion, seconds. Any further discussion?
Do we need to vote it now or to be it off?
I probably withdraw is the better way to do it. You mean
To
to
consider the next meeting?
just withdraw it?
We withdraw it, we'll just bring it back to the next.
Okay, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
I'm not gonna try to overstate that. I just feel like we went through, I'll try to do a better job of explaining it. We ran the frame and the umbilical cord cable failed, and so we replaced it to keep straight working and keep pulling. And that's what happened, but I guess we'll do a better job of explaining it.
I guess
So I guess
you're good.
I guess what's the board expectation? So the crane failed. Had been repaired.
So that they
So-
clear it. But we have to pay.
Well, obviously they're seeking reimbursement for it, so they don't necessarily have to. Right, they could have just repaired it and being part of the repair cost of the maintenance. So obviously, we talked about a lot of things in there about what the expectations are. And I'm not sure I've been clear as to what the expectations are in this case. What would be the expectation of the court? So
Well, that's, I don't understand.
crane failed, it needed repair. In this work.
that the operator conducts preventative repairs and maintenance of the facility. And then it says that it's over $15,000, so I just want to stay with the operator, which I am willing to accept at face value, unless I have a reason not to believe it. If they just provide a statement of they performed the maintenance, that this was not due to an accident or negligence, that the reason for the repair, that it fits within the agreement. They did reference that paragraph, but I don't think there's anything in here that says this is the type of repair that the paragraph that they reference says you should approve. So if there are, like, if it's negligence, if it's an accident, it's not our responsibility for the agreement.
It's an accident.
It says if it's an accident, you can agree. Yeah, so it's section 2.3, which is the section we're saying that it's the last sentence, that paragraph. If the open property is destroyed or damaged by any accident, neglect, or failure to maintain that document, then the operator should pay the full cost of replacement or repairs necessary. And there are some of the things that we looked at in that list that do seem to be within that category we talked about a lot lately. And so I would just want, statement that says this is why this is needing to be done. It's 10 years old. Yeah, like explain, like the failure occurred. It's not due to an accident, but
So moving forward, we need to have that, I guess, again, standard operating procedure, how do you request funds, the reimbursement, what is gonna be required, so we can approve it. Again, I think that it's, we kind of bear our responsibility. I understand your concerns, but we need to put it off to the next meeting and get some sort of,
There's no paragraph, something in that paragraph that says something about approval may not be unnecessarily.
yes, it also says that there will be new logs, records on each piece of equipment from when we're in use by the operator. And so that always says in reference to say like all maintenance is updated, it's in the log. It's all been performed, there was no accidents.
So you want,
He just
you
said
want
that
it.
it was,
So you want a copy too?
I don't want.
I didn't say that, reason why.
Yeah, we never said it was struck off. He's just saying that could be a cause of failure. That's not, to my knowledge, it wasn't struck off.
And that's not necessarily true.
What I am saying is that I was there when the crane was brought off of the vessel from overseas. We had no electronic problem with that crane until we started suffering lightning strikes to it. And then it started in its deterioration. Now, the last few months, I have observed that crane putting cargo movement in jeopardy because it was not being able to be used the way it was designed to be used. We were out there using straps to discharge empty containers, pulling them two at a time with straps, which that's what you have to do when you don't have a properly operating crane. It's dangerous when you're putting men between those containers and on top of them, those slings. So my experience is that, yes, and that's why I wanted to make sure that everybody understands we're not talking about a steel cable, a lifting cable. We're talking about a control cable. We have to make sure that that crane is functioning properly so that we don't put people unnecessarily in harm's way. That's my concern.
So, Chair, the port operator submitted some documents. Would that help, Mr. McNair? There's, maintenance report that was submitted this morning. Electrical repair schedule. I don't know if that will show.
By orders and what are the projects?
This is what we said on the last year to date.
I don't know. I don't know if the crane will contain a crane.
the right grades, they're one of them.
They're all. We're alone.
I think she submitted that this morning, right? Mary did. And there's also, they submitted a needs assessment. So needs assessment for electrical repair, needs assessment for structural repairs. Okay.
Appreciate it.
So July, container crane. So
Look forward to looking, schedule. We're good with it, looking. But you know what, let's just, so this is your law. You can, let's see, how.
Phil just got it, this morning, maybe it's this morning, we were.
Yep.
Going, we'll put it back on the next meeting, so Ms. Mayor, I think you have.
Right, it's fundamental, basic, what is the root cause? You cannot come in and say, give me $27,000, because it may not be like you chose to invest in it or present that.
Next meeting, we will, sorry.
Yeah, I think I could,
We just need more. information.
the problem,
You know,
If the ballot expense, then, you know, that's not a problem. It's just moving the right diligence and make sure that, you know, make sure the circumstances related to need for the repairs.
All right, moving on to 10B, for facility report, was the fabric workers, we got a Mr. Virtue. Please.
Offer 424 First Street. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I'm actually waiting to hear what the port operator says about the fabric warehouse. But I do want to be clear that if the answer is we have not gotten the permit yet, we've not filed for the demolition permit, then I'm gonna contact the city manager, Fern Beach, and the city commissioners to say, look, we want you to, the citizens want you to do what you need to do to penalize whoever builds without a permit. So we did an addition on our house, we had to have a permit. We did that recently. And more recently, it hadn't even come down yet, we had to get a permit to take down a tree. So I really expect the city to hold the port operator to the same standards that is holding the taxpaying residents to. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have an update, today in an email from, Amy Polson, the attorney for Savage. She said that she'd been informed that that the demo permit was applied for at the city. And the city informed them that there is no need for a demolition permit because it is a fabric warehouse. So there's no need to do a permit. A demolition can happen without that.
There's that question here. I didn't see the petition withdrawn,
Yes.
so I appreciate that. We have any updates to.
yeah, so we don't need a permit to move it. I'd just like to get a plan of action ready with the commissioners here and the timing. What we're came in, I think, just so we're all clear, so we can do the right estimates and everything. I want to know specifically where I can put this wetlands. I know it's all two yellow boxes on the screen, but I think it would behoove us to really plot out exactly where an approved location for us start this process.
I agree, you know, everyone's on the same page, you know, it makes sense.
So do you think, would you like me to bring something to the next meeting, like a more formal layout, so where you would like to put it?
I think, yes, they bring that, but it needs to be within, I mean, we approved a specific location. So at the next meeting, we have that on the agenda, where, you know, that package from, when it was approved before, with that specific location, so what you bring to us just needs to fall in that, gives us parameters.
Instead of two warehouses.
That number two warehouse was added, showing the prospect if there was a requirement for another one, that's where it is. But it was not saying that they were gonna put it there, it's just, this is where another one will be. Okay.
Correct. And we covered new business, we discussed some possible new business. Thank you for that too. All right, old business, tab 11A, the vendor replacement agreements. Tammy gave a pretty good update so far. So we're going to defer this to the next meeting, and then we are hopeful, well, we're hopeful we'll have the next meeting. Any other questions or comments regarding tab 11A?
No, just during this meeting, I'm told, I remember Kyle, he's been forwarding me all the RFP documents, and so, I mean, Opal went through the RFP process.
Yeah.
And actually, I emailed, TIC and said, hey, like, if you're not, licensed to do this in Florida,
Just all they do, it's
I
an
know.
online thing. Yeah, they need to go ahead and do that. So
that's still a little, for me, laughing, it's just still a little. Very Florida. We'll do sure.
Well, thank you as well. Tab 11B, revenue distribution and sharing arrangement with NASA terminals. I
Working.
and my notes that I know that you were gonna have a conversation with Amy, so it sounds like you did
we did,
work through that.
we did.
Do you have any idea?
I mean, I'm going to, I think she's very close to working on it. What was your question? Or will it be ready for the next?
No, what are the next steps? What are we, what are we waiting on?
We're trying to figure out, so the letter, if you recall, was broken down: pilot fee, tariff, facility use fee, and also discuss the facility use fee calculation where the 25% to OPA for the 7th year then is offset by property insurance premiums. So I just read the operating agreement. I had a conversation with Amy about the language in the operating agreement says that there is an account that $50,000 would go into. So I think we need to have 50,000 in that account before OPA would agree to pay any kind of insurance premium. So, and then OPA can, and I spoke with Pierre about this, you may not want to, but you can then say that that 50,000 is what you're going to use for your pilot payment. There's no restriction that says you can't use that for it. So, and then the issue of the port infrastructure fee, that extra bunkering admin fees, and then there's a port infrastructure fee that comes out of the additional tariff money. That's something that she and I, we have, because there is nothing really that's in writing, that's clear as to how all of these things is, I think we're going to be able to come up with a good solution with all of that without anything changing. We know we're not going to change the operating agreement, but if we can do something that memorializes how those things are broke down, that'd be good. But I mean, getting that pilot payment in there and making sure it's there every year is, one thing we want to do.
Looking for that. Any comment, questions? On tab 11C, this is the engineering services agreement, again,
It's here before you change, and I recommend approval. It's ready for action.
the motion or action by the board.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the contract with, ECTIL. At the bottom for the, impact.
We have a second for discussion, but I want to know. Okay. So you said in your report that their limitation liability would be higher.
The greater of what we pay them or $1 million.
Okay, so if a project that they are engineering has a construction build cost that is higher than $1 million, we would need to adjust that for that project. Because their limitation of liability is only $1 million, so if they.
You mean we'd have to adjust the amount of insurance that they,
Yes.
absolutely,
Request that.
Yeah.
If they're project.
absolutely.
And that would, do you think that that type of amendment to increase the insurance for a specific project, is that not gonna trigger the need for like a rebid? Like,
No, no, but are you saying that that's something that you want to make sure that is in here, that I go back? Or just that we have that as a practice? Yes,
as long as we make a note to our file, that this approval, like, that this really only allows us to call on them for a $2 million. Obviously, I would prefer that it was higher, but I understand that it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to carry higher policy, waiting for us to call them to do work, because right now they're just sort of available to us. They're
Right.
not on tier. So we would request, like a certificate of a higher liability policy if they were to work on a $2 million.
and the other is that I asked them to have OPA named by special written endorsement as additionally insured. So that means that they're carrying insurance for any liability that OPA may have too. So, I think that's probably why they kept it at 1 million, but absolutely, that would be my practice and we understand that if there were a really big project, but I will tell you that if we get a really big project, that when you have construction that exceeds $5 million, we can't use them. There's a limit to where we can use continuing. We have to go back out for another engineering RFQ.
Okay.
So, but I don't know it's 5 million. I don't know what the insurance threshold would be, but definitely noted and would make sure.
Is there a motion from Commissioner Moore, second from Commissioner Hill? All those in favor? Tab 11B, notice to court operator, list of outstanding requests. I do want to commend Travis. We did receive an email. I know Commissioner Nelson, Vice Chair Nelson's been in communication to him and did send over an email. This afternoon, I believe, or this morning, to forward it over. And since a lot of this list right here is, if parents to talk about some of the work you've been doing.
Different photos. I will speak to them one by one. One or two, bent, steel panel bent, pushed out, button torn, leaving, open sections. We have, so as I told y'all last meeting, the process for me was to get the safety railing in place. And get that secured, welded, put up correctly before we replaced all the siding. Don't quote me on the number, I think there's 60-something sheets of siding from down that warehouse. We are replacing all of them. We're not gonna patchwork anything, we're putting out the right pieces from top to bottom, and I didn't wanna put that in before putting guardrails in. There's pictures towards the end of the email that you can refer to warehouse 3 is where there's a finished product other than the stickers for the safety railing. And I say stickers, just reflective tape that I'm wanting. We have blue lights on the forklifts. I wanted to hit the just pop, bring awareness to it. They are painted. That's new installation. Warehouse 1, which is the northern warehouse on Front Street, we not replacing, but putting back up the rail that was already there, putting extra brackets in to hold them in the middle. We're gonna come back through and paint those same color, the new ones already like tape on. Then we're gonna go through and replace each panel. There's a bay door that Commissioner Nelson referred to that had this in terrible shape, has brick broken off the side of it as well. Have been approved in our CapEx. I didn't have a start date on that yet, but it is in the process. So each one of these questions refer to different holes or needed fixes that need to be happening in the siding, and that happened because of the resin. So the resin is replaced, it hasn't been finished painting. There's one small section left on the very south end of warehouse three that we still have to get that done. So, all 27 pictures were regarding that side on Front Street, rather, except for a pedestrian door going to warehouse three that was not sitting very well. That door has been replaced, new mounts, everything, the whole frame has been replaced, door functions as it should be. So, that's covers a handful, all the questions, excuse me, and a couple extra additional notes have been brought to our attention in discussions. Here, we're putting hurricane strapping underneath the guard shack rather than the turnbuckles that are there now. Safety reasons, just better do it correctly. I mentioned, it's not on the list, but I mentioned, last meeting that in Second Street, safety arms would go into the terminal, would not cross the complete path, so we put new arms in. They actually cross with nothing to get through, if I can get through before you can drive the car. There was an AC unit ordered for the interchange guard check. We originally got it, it was damaged. We just received the new one, so I'll be getting that put in as well. I'm putting signage, I have signs came in today, as a matter of fact, I was told for, put on the fence, just warning on the fence on, Dade Street, barbed wire, do not enter. Those are getting put up as well. But does that answer each of the question or any of y'all's concerns on these here? I mean,
Yeah, like, okay.
what needed to be done?
Need to be done. There were several other, items that, I identified several, about six different things, primarily related to the security lighting and perimeter lighting and the warehouse arrangements.
I have not seen those, Commissioner. Yeah, I missed that. I will look for that. And that'll be,
Let me get your email.
yes, sir. Sure.
There's no one.
Yeah, I'm putting point things out, and not being done right, so I want to be fair and say on Travis's behalf, that when I go out there, I'm on the site, to come and talk about things. Everything that he has told me he was going to do, he's done. And what a breath of fresh air that you don't have to sit on the hill with binoculars and try to catch people not doing what they're supposed to. When Lou called me about the trash, I sent an email to Travis, and he told me, he says, I'm on it. I'll take care of this. And, I appreciate that because it helps everybody see that, what, we're working together. And we're gonna make this work, for the neighbors that live around there, when they call me, I'll go out there and see you. And for him to show up and say, hey, is there anything we need to talk about? It's such a breath of fresh air, other than, yeah, we'll take care of it. And you go back the next 4 or 5 times and it hasn't been taken care of. So publicly, I want to thank you for doing what you say you're doing. I thank you for that. And it helps everybody. It really does. I thank you for that. I can't do what I say from Ted as far as some of the not throwing things on the so we're doing everything right and giving me that. I've seen that as well. And I was out there the other day, and the job that the welders are doing, they're painting it. Front Street's gonna look totally different when the rail cars are gone, and that's completely done. It's gonna look really nice. Thank you, Travis. Yes, sir. Justin. Thank you.
Moving down tab 11E, website design, Commissioner Moore, I think, worked with, Berlin on this, so through review.
Yep, we had another meeting with,
Civic Plus.
Sarah. We are planning on, having another meeting, and this one, they're gonna record, so that we'll be able to, back to the commissioners and, we're looking to develop and just questions we've got lost that one for the breath and the recorded rare meeting, commissioners that just the questions. Yeah. Before we're going to children and questions and
Yeah.
So we can get those addressed so that everybody can understand the civics process and the thought and what they can provide. And try to move forward with this as quickly as possible.
So Chair, yes, if the board has specific requirements or inquiry about the website, please send them to me so we could ask during the meeting. And then when they provide the recording, I will distribute it to the board and please watch it. Watch it before the meeting. And then we could make a decision.
Sure. So let's get any comments or questions?
And when is that meeting again?
It's on the 16th.
Yeah, when I was reading the minutes about the ADA compliance, I was thinking, we need to make a decision first.
Yeah.
Tab 11, the CUP facility projects. Was there any communications, picking back up?
Yes, sir. And
Sorry,
Commissioner Moore, would you like to update on our TLC meeting?
So, we get together with the new team. There are a number of buildings, but also the new people from the school side. It was very good, it was very productive. We're always looking forward to moving ahead. We are at the planning schedule. We have the initial engineering study, which we approved the construction of the heating one. And now we're looking to move ahead once we get which is looking for.
I'm expecting it before the end of this month, and then OPA needs to execute it. And then we could go ahead and start work on the project. We do need engineering. That's what we said. I don't know if we're gonna use Aptim or port operators in-house engineers.
Yeah, that'll be the actual engineering associated with the actual construction and then with the $315,000 that Dave's team was good enough to help us receive in the current for the state budget. That would be for the addition of the towards the construction phase of the property.
Yeah, and since you mentioned Davis Bean, we actually had him on the agenda here to talk about state appropriation. Do want to thank him for his efforts, his work in Tallahassee to get that done. And of course, in Black and Sierra Yard. Davis, if you'd like to make comments, if you want to say anything more discussion on it. We're gonna move that item. It's tab 12B.
Yeah.
We're just move it up to.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, Governor signed the budget, which included the $350,000 for the CBP facility. Obviously, it doesn't cover the full amount. I think there's going to be conversation on that later. So coming up with a game plan moving forward, but I think it would be good as you look at your summer schedule, potentially do a resolution thanking Representative Black and Senator Yarborough. I know they're busy. They've got after a 105-day legislative session, you'll probably take some well-deserved time off, but you could extend an invite to one of your meetings, but at the very least, a resolution of things, because none of this is possible without me.
That's good. That's good. Good everybody. Of course, thanks to you. Thanks to them. It's money.
Yeah, and DOT will reach out to Rosanna. Usually that takes a little while. New fiscal year being July 1, but wouldn't be surprised if it takes a month or two to hear from them.
So I just want not for a cold one over something. So if y'all could just text me up, the other thing in the CDP facility,
the documents I've seen are 2.7 million in 2024 dollars, right? So just to address the elephant, like how do we make up the deficit? It's roughly 2.3 million.
I think a good way, again, going to state legislature, with a request of 2 million, and they come back and offer 350, which is, I feel like it's typical with projects like this, they could kind of phase it in over time. So again, next year, I would foresee the same thing, Dave's correct, if I'm wrong, but there would be the ask to try to close that gap a little more. So it was chip away at it until you can get the full amount. I understand, today's dollars and it changes, inflation and further out you get. But that's, anybody else wants to chime in? I mean, that's kind of where I was.
We're, I think we're talking about rates a little bit later, but, obviously that was another source of money, for security type grants, there's a customer board action item with, the security related. I think I think we're in agreement that we're committed to try to move forward, with any grant opportunities that come along to defer at least a significant portion of the remaining cost. But
Okay, and then, excuse my ignorance on this too, but so, David, you may be an expert for me, so if we have appropriations throughout, do we have to use those funds in the fiscal year?
Yes, sometimes capital dollars can get more than just the fiscal year. But there's been numerous occasions where we've been working with the department on extending those dollars and trying to get too into the weeds, but if the department says no, it's allocated in this fiscal year, you're revert and reappropriate process in the state legislative budget, where essentially you go in and in the back of the bill, the state budget that is tracked, you can go in and identify lines from the previous fiscal year, just take the money and whatever's left and reappropriate those dollars next year so that general revenue doesn't come sweeping.
Got it, okay. Thank you. And then just for my knowledge, when y'all are looking at the different designs of a CDP, there's probably like, I think there's modular one, or building one across the street. Was this the most economical of the options?
Well, I remember, yes, to what they, I mean, it was certainly, just kind of details of all the options that you're reviewing.
Okay, so I saw the options like were laid out, but I only saw pricing for one. So like, maybe I don't have the right thought. I was just innocent question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have a refresh of where we are with the project, with the total number of grant dollars we been awarded, because there's a few different pots of money. That we've been awarded, there was 25,000 for the initial plan. And then, there was like another 178,000, and then they requested for 350, and we got 350 from the legislature. But just to try to level set, on, now that we have made a material, path material milestone. So that we can just make sure that you're all aware of where we are, then but the concept of reusing the existing facility, the plan that was developed is maybe a good percentage aspirational. The design that was, presented, and if that was the approved design, when we get to the construction phase, there may be components of that design that are not feasible, due to cost or funding constraints. And then I think we should also talk about, what other funding mechanisms might be available. I know we're sensitive to cost, we want to be competitive, but if it makes sense to have, a fee associated, and add that to our tariff. If we need to have some mechanism to offset these costs, they are real costs. So we wouldn't, if it's your own personal budget, you would only be able to build what you can afford. So if we are having to host tenants with no rent, we have to figure out how to pay
for those facilities.
And then this grant, 146, right? That'll be matched $500, right? That'll be, okay. So then
That's for the plane, that's not construction.
That's FDOT grant,
yeah,
and then the state grant. Two different pots of money. So you have the FDOT grant, 147, with a 50% match. And then state appropriation of $300,000. So you actually have $600,000 spent.
But the state appropriation doesn't require the match.
Right.
That's just straight up $350,000.
Yeah, so we have an FDOT grant also. So, okay.
So we pay rent here at the city and it's very affordable. We don't pay for utilities. The utilities at Berlin House, the utilities at the Custom House are very high because they're old buildings. And insulation goes a long way. If you can insulate, so a lot of times in old structures, you just can't. So Roseanne and I have talked about this, like how can we get creative to save money in our rent? You maybe from locate and offset some of the costs of the building. If OHPA could have our offices there, it might save us some money, but given that the power on the customs house is like $600 a month. That's much higher than our rent here. So it may not be even cost effective for us to locate and so.
and I think it may be useful for me, maybe just to connect to you, Richard, more on you. Obviously, you're a subject matter expert, just to understand, and obviously I know what CPP does, but admittedly, it's sort of a foregone conclusion when I think about their function, right? So I just need to, I think I need to understand it. Okay. I'm always available.
Moving on to tab 11G, sorry, work through here, the grant applications, Rosanna.
So, we just need an update on the PIDP where that is, the application process, because September 10th will be coming up fast.
So if I could,
Sure.
so, I think we all agree that flooding is a new road, right? So, I asked around and I was under the assumption that we had a scope defined, hopefully with estimates. I don't think we do. So someone please correct me if I'm wrong. So, okay, so we got a really tight time frame. So I've talked to, is it Ron at Acton? So as soon as he's, I really don't think I need contract approval by the board to go forward with him. I mean, it just makes more sense to use them. So what we gotta do is we gotta go out and find what the problem is, the scope, get estimates and get it filed. And so I've laid that out to him. I've bugged him all week. He says he's getting me a proposal to write the grant, close the business tomorrow. Hopefully that comes. I have a proposal from another grant writer as well, so we can go further with the tight time frame as long as they show confidence and they're somewhat reasonable. I think I'm gonna have to go with Acton, just to be honest, just because of time. So I don't have a lot of hard details here. Well, they say never assume, and I assume. So I assume there's a scope, there's estimates, and there's a plan, fix flooding. What I think we have is just a report that shows the severity of flooding, but not how. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have a different opinion or have different advice?
Are you proposing that the PIDP that everything we look at, is the flow, the
Commission, I don't know what, I'm not an engineer, so for me to guess what it's gonna take to fix that, because, I mean, I told all y'all, I think what makes the most sense in this grant program is to go for a small port, small grant. 25% total pot goes to those. And again, someone contradict me here, but I think it's our best chance of getting a good grant that maxes out at 11.2 million. I they could do a lot as a small port with that money. If Athens comes back and says it's $6 million to fix your flooding, hallelujah, right? We'll throw the rest of the customs house and whatever else we need, by mutual agreement. But with the tight time frame, I'm just kind of running the gun here. As I said, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, grant applications are, the ones that win, they can be pretty detailed, so. We're sitting at, almost exactly 2 months out. When that grant has to be submitted, 2 months. I know,
I'd rather shoot from half court and put the knife in the basketball, so.
yeah,
Yeah, so it depends on what we get. Like cost share. So the federal cost share is determined by the total amount of federal funds, I would think that cost, so. We're limited by our ability to match. So we could go after a large project, right, but then it's coming up with coming up with the match, right? And then this funding has a specific set aside for small ports, which is great for us, we've talked about that. But it's less than 11 million, so
It's 11.2.
11.25. So for less than that, that seems to be a good sweet spot for us because I know there's cash constraints for coming up with a match. So we would love to build a seawall next year, right? But can we go with the match? Seawall, it's gonna be a challenge. So when you talk about flooding being an issue, are you saying to like figure out how to manage that without the major project or identify a different project?
Yeah, if I scope of how to fix it, I mean, it could be a raise and pay, 2 jobs ago, that's what we did. And the port terminal, we basically took the whole elevation of the low lying area up instead of trying to keep the water out. It's one way, seawall, a one-way valve, seawall where water can only go out and not comes in. Those are all things, but again, I'm not a year. Commissioner Hill, do you remember what the match is for those small project? It goes up to 100, or is it? I mean, that lowers our chance of getting a win. Is it up? I know the big ones are a match, right? That's like a 25.
Yeah, it's a match. Usually your infrastructure is 7.25 or 80/20. I was just looking at the HMTV Northport flood protection goal, and so they basically identified that 2024 resiliency plan was on our website, 55 pages, it's called the secret. Page 46 of that document identified the north side of the forest, this is basically in the bulkhead, where the port clinch is usually frozen. That section that cuts over to the rail spur, that section of the marsh is where there's a lot of water intrusion. And that's also the section where up underneath the rail spur, as I understand it, the water does not flow out. So it actually like will flow in at a high tide and then it will, because it's mucky and the pipes are full of junk blocks, sure. That it'll build up back.
I said that before. We told them to please redo it. Take it to version.
But that would actually, that would be a huge project to have positive environmental impacts for the surrounding marsh as well, because water would flow freely. Not that that's, I mean, we're focusing more on the economic aspects of it, but it would be, I think, a win-win. And that's a much smaller section than an entire bulkhead. Like it's a linear feature, but it looks like it's maybe 150 feet.
Yeah, just another item, engineering, I mean, I plan on getting after them to get dollars in the water. I don't think anybody's done an on-water assessment since 2019. So, I mean, made me feel a lot, not our team that been working on this now, so I think that's, yeah, one of those.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I ask had a question? So, and just for the good of everybody, so the contract that was approved tonight, that's, you're starting to generate work, requests for work from after. And so that contract, the chair should be signing that tonight, because I know that, so it'll be effective tonight. So that's not a problem. And, we should have work, whenever they do a proposal, and then a work order would have to be approved by this board once they start doing work. So how do you want to do that? I'm thinking out loud here, obviously, I'm sort of stuttering, is do we need to do some type of letter agreement with you guys? Because you don't want us bogging you down necessarily if there's, right? I mean, if you're paying the bill, how does the board want to handle that? Sorry, that's what us lawyers do. It's just complicate things, right? I mean, I can't just call Apple and get them to do some work.
Yes.
You can, I mean, you can pay them, but we've got this thing in the way, and every time, just like we had with the reimbursement request for maintenance, or not maintenance, for the repair to the crane, how do you want to do that? I have no legal problem whatsoever with the operator requesting services from Aptum, but it has to all run through OPA as the contracting party.
But I can't just go grab any engineering company and march them out.
Oh, you can if it's under $35,000. You absolutely can.
Over 35,000.
Anything over 35,000, but it's for some of the stuff you're talking about is not engineering. Some of the stuff you're talking about is Aptum is like for lack of better words, all service environmental company. So some of the stuff, diving and doing inspections, that's not engineering, that's covered. You can hire them for anything you want to do. You want to do a side agreement with them for whatever, that's fine too. But and we are the only ones, if it's our assets that are being improved, if it's OPA's public assets, then we're subject to this CCNA statute, all this RFQ stuff. So if you're doing things on the side that happen, that's,
Okay, let me,
and you can,
maybe I won't get that from the dollars for the work, just so thanks. I'll
I mean, I'm all for it. And feel free, if you want to email me and like set up a call or something like that, I'm
Okay.
happy to do it. So we can,
No, I mean, I just, I forget our other port is totally private.
I know.
So.
And I'm,
It's, that's a 101 for the port, is to make sure your road's okay.
yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, I am all for efficiency, and so I can help you. Plus, I have access to, from my last job, I mean, these documents, like I can spit them out very quickly to make sure that, so tap me for all that Florida stuff, and then make sure we get it right.
Chair. So obviously, we just need Apton to write the grant first and see if we get a grant before any of those work.
You have to define the scope, we have to go out there and find the problem, define the scope, and then get estimates to fix it. Then you have to have that and then put in the grant application.
Yeah, so I know that we had this on the agenda for later, the discussion of coordination with the city. There's small, but I think it might be helpful to just pull up, it's on the website, the resiliency plan, because it has like pictures that show areas with sections of the port that have flooding, and it shows the section of the port that is used to coordinate with the city, we've seen a lot higher. It's 41 or 55 that.
I cannot pull that up on this computer because it's HDMI. It's not hooked to the internet, so I can't pull it up on this computer. Please tell me which document you guys want to be projected up, and I will have it before the meeting because I can't just.
Okay. Yeah.
I will have it tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but the next meeting.
So just so you can see what I'm looking at. So right here, this is page 21, it's a blow up of that north section. So I guess the question would be looking at these projects, so it's list, they list them out, there's seven, eight different components. So I would start with this.
Yeah, and I've said this out.
Okay,
It said like, this needs to be kind of our base camp and we need to go from there.
so
Commissioner
one
Hill?
for the warehouses, which is preparing metal roofing and wall panels, you're working on that. You're already working on that, they list out tie downs, installing fasteners to enhance the structures. We're having bones.
So I do have the map saved. Does that help?
This would probably be a good document to have saved locally for meetings, just because it has, it's
Yeah.
on the website.
Yeah, I do have this on this computer.
No, I mean the agents.
Okay, I will do that.
So are you asking for our direction on what we see as priorities or how? are we-
Yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, I just, when you look at a grant, just from my brain, it's like, okay, you do a grant, it's gonna be a big lapse before the money comes. So what are projects that, yeah, they need to get done, but they don't, we can kind of work around it right now. Like, we deal with the flood and we can't use that area of the port. Just seems to me that makes the most sense. Also, if we are having problems under the berth, if they're saying, hey, you're at a C minus, right? Like you need to get that to a B plus. Well, then that's something too you could address with grant funds. There are delayed, realistically a year and a half. So, but again, I'm just doing my best here. I'm just trying to figure something out.
So the attachments, so the warehouses, if there was talking about hurricane clips, that could actually result in a big decrease in our insurance costs. So it's not gonna help with flooding, and it only helps if we have severe roof events, right? But maybe that's the question we need to hear is, if we only have like up to $11 million as a target, how should we define this?
Well, I've been out there and actually looked. We are losing ground out there. I know this was a topic back at master plan. That we just completed a couple years back. There was some heavy, discussion on this. It's not gonna be an easy fix. Uh, Based on the undertide that's coming in, it's coming out of the northwest, and when it comes off of that river, uh, it just shears it. I mean, you can go down there now and say when you fall in the river. I mean, it's just undermining it big time. It's gonna take some doing, it's gonna take some heavy engineering to go down there, because that's the lowest part of the terminal. And you can, anywhere you're at out there, if you look, you can see that north end just is on a slope. Um, I would say that would be my priority, because the longer you let it linger, the more devastation you're gonna have to deal with. We need to stop the erosion, and we need to get that area, secure and reversed.
So can we only apply for one? Yeah, you up to 11 million, or could we do different projects like the alternative?
You can do. It's one grant application that can have a number of parts. They should be somewhat related to each other. But they don't have to be, completely married up to each other. Like, for example, if you could draw a tangential relationship with, the north side, infrastructure, um, however we want to phrase that, that particular part of the project, if you could tie that to the customs house, you could put those two in under the same level of grant application. But you have to be able to make some sort of logical tie between the two that you couldn't put in a PIDP grant to shore up the north side of the Port Fernandina and then also build an offsite branch. Those would be too far apart, not really too apart, but too far different in scope and scale.
It says no more than 10% of funding is built to large projects. Remember 10%. So I'm curious what they think our odds are with small books. That's a better strategy to go after the small board.
I think the small port is a better strategy as far as they're committed to 25% of the total outlay of the grants related to small port applications.
Of a total of 100.
Yeah, so 25% of that would be kind of earmarked for
Oh, no, 120. Sorry. 125 is the amount awarded to small books.
yeah. Yeah, yes. So if you did the math, you could reverse engineer that. You did, what's the other 75% of 125 million? You probably with the number, it's pretty close to the total. Now it's maybe for this. But I think we are a small port. It doesn't seem like any of our projects in the grand scheme of things are that large when you look at some of the past awards to some of the larger ports. I think it also makes sense to go for a small port application because even though there's a lot of money associated with the grant, on paper, there's all that large number also means that there has to be a large match associated. So it's all well and good if you get $100 million grant to realize that now you got to come up with $100 million as your match to that.
Mr. Chair, is there any reason that we haven't reached out to our friends for Fernandina, Congressman G? And I know Congressman Rutherford has told me if there's anything that I can get assistance, please don't hesitate to contact. I mean, I got both of their numbers in my phone. There's gotta be some, because the, CBP has a certain requirement on a building that they want. I think we should reach out to the feds and say, look, what can you help us with? I mean, the state's doing their part, to the point they are, but let's reach out to the feds and say, where can we stand? What can you help us with? We might be surprised.
And just to tag on that, I'm pretty sure there's technically no match requirement for small projects. There's technically no match now. That's gonna hurt your standing, but if we, had friends in high places and help us out, maybe we could do a 10% match for $11 million. That's something that I can go and swallow my share versus 25. I just think I'm trying to find some way we can get there with compromise. Does that sound reasonable?
I think it would behoove us to reach out to them and just say, look, doesn't do any harm to ask. You might be surprised what you get. But if we don't ask, we'll never know. So we need to reach out to them and ask. What on the federal level can be done to help us? We are a small, we don't have a city that we can go to and just say, hey, we need 4 new trains, and voila, they appear. The city of Jacksonville and the way Jacksonville works is a little bit different, maybe. So, we need to take every avenue that we can possibly come up with and utilize.
So it's a letter of support for application and
Absolutely.
any other requests.
I mean, I know that we're now in Congressman Rutherford area, but he still reached out and said, if I can help him, I'll do it.
So the way we work this PID application is written, you have to disclose if you're going after other federal funds. If you do subsequently get other federal funds, they would reduce this award by that amount. So you tell them the whole price of that project and the scope. So if you're going to the feds for funding, that's one bucket, whether it's from PID or from the. Yeah.
I can say it's worth a try, and you won't know until you.
Yeah, you don't really, that's the key out. But, I think where we're at is, we're 2 months in a day, from the date that we actually see that, so. We're, we're down to, we're down to brass tacks, we have to move forward, we have to, define the scope. Have to start on the data collection, whatever the grant writer's gonna need. The more data we can provide them, the more they need it, that grant application is gonna be, we're going to start chances of getting it. Yeah. So,
I will say that my communication after, they feel confident in
Yeah.
So you'll be coming back to us with a recommendation from Captain as to which project would fit within, or will be particularly free, or they give us different choices, or. That we can vote on.
what I plan to do is say that. Again, I've already told them, please review the resiliency plan, that's going to be sort of your guiding light. That's pretty much all I have for you. That kind of outlines the problem. The main thing is going to be the flooding. If we need to do a dock assessment on our own dollar, that's fine. But then that'll give us a data point on that. Those are my two right there. Of course, the warehouses, hurricane proofing, that would be good. CBP, that would be great too. So yeah, I'm gonna pedal to the metal, hard as we can go.
Faster.
Chair,
Right, yes.
before you move on, there's another grant, ILC. Everybody, received that information on that. That is a rolling application, and that is a $15 million grant. So please let me know if you need the information again.
Which grade again?
That's ILC, Intermodal Logistics Center Infrastructure Support Program through FDOT. They spoke about that, at the FPC.
Yeah, the way I understand it, that is for probably the primary, just my second, need for an off-site facility, multi-million off-site.
One by y'all or can it be, we've got the offsite facility.
I don't think that it's, obviously we would need something to stake in it. As the grant package is.
But, I do want to bring up, we are, Davis's help, we are putting in the, what is it, the FDOT security, it's the S, that's, okay, yeah, so we've got quotes to, automate all the gates. And improve the security, but we'll have details on that the next meeting, that's okay. Because that's a rolling application, but we still want to get it in.
Is that a grant by the port operator, which that grant money.
So I understand the question where the magic dollar come from.
No, no, like, for example, oh, yeah, you're gonna have to apply, you have to pay into the grant, OPA is the initiative.
The FSA security grant, it would be pretty low.
But we're just gathering the info now, folks, and just the framework and how much we're gonna ask for, obviously, we match the follow, so.
And just to be clear, that application process we created like through the normal FSA process, and then as we submitted and work with that development, this is actually a letter to the FSA council that will be voted on in August.
I apologize, I've been terribly about to explain that, so thank you.
Yeah. And just to be clear, but I also agree, we have to look at it. I think,
Yeah, yeah, there's two layers that, you know, the government partner, government agency has to do the grant submitting entity, and then there are other grants that, the private industry. Okay, that can apply for on the run.
Yeah, it looks like the government really percent of the Bible shop. See, and Stace is right, it is acceptable for a private entity, as long as private interface a benefit to the Florida public work. So that would be a key in the obligation would be to demonstrate the benefit of that inland facility to the port.
Yeah, yeah,
Having jobs.
I feel like I could.
Yeah. So the straight to back actual report.
We had the only industrial parcel really left on the island. One of the.
I mean, frankly, there are industrial sites in other, parts of the county that, or throughout the state, and if something makes sense, we have to look at what's good for the board trying to do that. But if you identify a site and you want to develop it, I think this could potentially give you a 50% match for the portion that is benefiting a public port.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes.
may I ask Mr. Bean a question?
Yes.
Could you have that letter for that security grant by OPA's next meeting, because we have to submit that by August 27th or before.
and if you rely on the.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on one quote.
We're working.
Chris sent the wrong quote. He sent me a quote for something else, so I couldn't wrap it all up. It's all good. I mean,
The letter itself, like, good, right?
yeah, it's good. It's,
Itself, down, like, close, and I won't, I can get to that.
Right, because the board has to approve it before we submit it to the FPC chairman. And I'm still waiting for the rural and tribal assistance grant. They have a new deadline. They haven't posted the new deadline yet, so I'm checking every day.
If not, it's me.
No,
but Commissioner Hill, if we won this Fed grants, this federal grants, we're on the time.
rural and tribal, yeah.
Now, if we won something, there's track. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Cool. All right. Moving on to 12A, a new business, property and seawall projects. I know Rosanna has been in communications with Royal HPA,
Yes.
the trade administrator for the city.
Yes, yes.
You want to touch on some of those conversations and.
Well, the board saw her email. I distributed it, but my ask tonight is to appoint a commissioner as a point of contact for Mrs. Jacobs, so that that commissioner can just get information from her and relay the message to the board. Now, initial communication was with Commissioner Hill. So if you want her to continue. Okay, and so I will tell Mrs. Jacobs that Commissioner Hill is the point of contact.
13, office manager report. Remember?
My report is attached to the meeting packet, and my only request tonight is when I send an email, and I send emails to everybody, please read it, because that's a lot of information. Unless you guys want me to call each and every one of you, I will do that. Just direct me to do so. That's it.
Mr. Adams, Mr. Warner.
Yeah, I have got an email from Michelle, the voting, she's the chief legislative animal, program policy in government accounts in Tallahassee. There is a survey related to, maritime fuel and training for cargo and cruise ships. I talked to, Ted Boothby about it. It takes about 15 minutes to do it. It's due by, July 11th. Just based on preliminary, and he hasn't had a chance to look at it yet, based on the preliminary discussions. It looks like there's gonna be no answer to it, being fuel. So, seeking, permission from the chair and the committee to work with Ted and make sure that that gets, completed and submitted. Comments, questions? Okay, and we go to feedback. But real quick observation, the financial constraint that we're under, I think we need to take a hard look at organizations, voluntary organizations that are members of. How much bang for the buck do you get for the different organizations that we pay dues to? Sure that be part of future budget discussions, but I think there's a lot of things that make sense for a port, that's in great financial shape, that may not make a lot of sense for this not in such a great financial shape. Okay. We're good.
So I did meet with, a report on the meeting for the mural, but I wasn't really clear on what our next step should be with that group. And I've continued to get emails from them with like ideas for murals, images that they're seeing in the city of Jacksonville, throughout the county. Is that something that we should keep pursuing, or what's the sentiment for this to the mural? I mean, the next step to me is figure out how it would be funded. So, yeah, are there entities that would like to sponsor it? And I think there are some local businesses that are interested in sponsoring it. And then if we're interested in moving forward, then we would define like the scope of the project, you would advertise, let artists provide their portfolios, and we would have them present their portfolios if they're interested, have it done in a meeting, and get feedback from the community. We could also have feedback from the community prior to the time that comes. But it's our building, and it's really up to us to kind of, say we want to do it and keep moving it forward if we indeed want to do this.
Like, something I like the idea of it. Do we know what it costs? So the minimum reach out to businesses and try to find that's sort of. They're not.
It's like $40 a square foot, that's from the estimates I heard, but it could be more or less than that. I mean, I don't drop numbers because an artist. If it's a well-known artist, it's probably gonna be at high end. One of the things that was thrown out was like, would tourist development dollars pay for this? But I know one of the thresholds for that is like, would it drive overnight stays? So is someone going to come to Bernadina just to see that stay with us at all?
Sure. Never know. Sure.
If it's a really famous restaurant. But I think we have to come up with the private source of funds, so that's probably the toughest thing on. Okay, well, I'll keep working on it, and I will ask for some ideas about how to fund it, and we'll look for engagement from just a local realtor that will
he was letters to all because he came to the board and, you know, wants to list our applicants, so. Again, the way was interested in sponsoring a portion of the mural, the maybe that was registered as sponsoring a portion of the mural. Is that something we have to go through for a permit? If they're paying for a project, sponsoring it?
Not necessarily. I, it depends on the amount, you know, but, what are you envisioning? You're saying,
So let's say that it's more than $50,000. Outside of this work.
yeah. Would that have to,
For by a private, like, the brokerage firm.
then no,
And the content is not gonna be an ad for the brokerage firm, there might be like a hashtag on.
because that, I was gonna say that too, is the city's gonna have to permit it. So although it's gotta be a content neutral permitting process, one of the things is there can't be any commercial advertising.
Right.
So, no, I don't, I mean, if it's not OPA dollars that we're spending, then it doesn't have to be. And this type of service anyway is probably something that would be exempted. You know, a lot of codes have, we don't have a procurement code, but I know the city does, the county does. And a lot of times they exempt artwork and different types of specialized services. So I don't necessarily think it has to be a competitive process.
Okay, we'll keep that open question on as we move forward.
The one thing you might want to do in research is reach out to Maury Duggar at the TDC, because there were a few years ago, they were talking about, I don't know if it was how much, if any, tourist development dollars, but they were working with mural artists that were going to put some things downtown, and there was not going to be any cost to the city or to the property owner. So I'm not saying that TDC is paying, but that might be a way to find more artists or organizations that sponsor these types of murals.
Thanks for that. And then I'll say congrats to. Presentation of projects. It's a lot of work and I just really appreciate your earnestness. And for the one approval tonight for maintenance funds, again, I just would like just a simple statement referencing that in my contract, but I don't think to hold you up. So look forward to doing that next meeting.
Sure. Again, I would like to echo, Mr. Hill's thanks to Travis, on pushing those projects through and getting that issues taken care of. As far as the Army Corps of Engineers goes, we do not have anything, in works until November. And that's when we'll be doing the dredging out.
And if there's any comments about, Vegas and, Patterson Jail, or Jingles, Maryland, I like the communication and the follow-up, getting it, and where it needs to be, and so we'll just keep moving on with that. Economic Development Board is having an economic update luncheon on August 14th from 11 to 1, and then it'll be at the tower. And I will remind everybody again at the meeting. But the NCDB has also asked for pledge. We usually, and we were just discussing that, what we get on our line for these groups that we participate with. They're asking for, we've done $1,000 a year, and they're asking for 2,500 this year. All other municipalities have increased their amounts to that. This city of Bernardino, the downtown, all the others have, but it doesn't mean that we have to. And it is just been asked, but we're talking about our budget. We want to move ahead with it. So we'll address that when we have time, but see where we're at. Right. Well, now,
Right. The